Hello, friends. I am Chevy. Welcome to my shed. How is your day today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I hope it's fantastic. Everything here is very good. And I have read books, but we're going to talk about GAMA because a bunch of you had questions on my GAMA video that I thought would be interesting to do kind of a follow up. Like, I think that there's a lot of people in the board game space that aren't even aware of GAMA and what GAMA does, including those of us that are members. So I'm going to start with a question. Well, not really a question, more of a statement from Chris Hahn, who said, "It's funny that Portal was there considering how vocal your boss is about them." So if you've listened to Board Games Insider podcast at all, you will know that Ignacy, the president and founder of Portal Games, is pretty openly vocal about his displeasure with the organization. Yeah, I feel like I've probably influenced that decision quite. I've had a lot of bad things to say about GAMA for a lot of years. If you don't know, GAMA was founded. I mean, I could have probably done research, but I'm just going off the cuff. Like in the 70s or 80s, as a manufacturers association. At that time, there were lots of manufacturers in the U.S., including people who were just like hand collating copied pages and selling, products to whatever. So it was set up as a manufacturers association. But those jobs all went overseas. There are still some manufacturers in the United States. Delano Print Services is one of them. I think that Siaco, also Game Right / Buffalo, I think they also produce in the U.S. I think Ad Magic has some printing facilities in the U.S. But the vast majority of the hobby game market is manufactured overseas, whether that's in India or Europe or specifically Poland, the Czech, that kind of region, or in China. The vast majority of manufacturing moved overseas. So over the years, GAMA kept expanding its scope and started letting publishers in, started letting distributors in, started to kind of like, let's encompass the entire game pipeline under one flag, and that is GAMA. And so I've been a part of this industry in one way or another since 1996. That was when I started helping with the X-Files card game with United States Playing Cards. And I could tell you until the last probably 3 years, I couldn't have told you a single thing that GAMA did for this industry other than host a trade show and host Origins. GAMA Origins, the convention, is a GAMA event. And to be honest, Origins was complete garbage after Wizards of the Coast left. So it used to be GAMA and Wizards of the Coast put that on. Maybe even it was GAMA TSR, and then Wizards of the Coast adopted it. But when Wizards of the Coast pulled out in the early 2000s, Origins turned into a dirt mall. Just nobody went. So I've been very vocal because we pay membership dues to this organization that doesn't seem to do a whole lot. And but I will say there has been a whole lot of introspection on GAMA's front in the last 5 to 10 years that I've seen positive growth, positive change, and this past GAMA was part of that. It was definitely growth, which takes me to this past GAMA. Chris, the other Chris, not Chris Hahn, said, "Why were Reno and Vegas horrific?" Because I mentioned that this location in Louisville was much better. So my most recent experience would be Reno. Come on. I mean, I would ask if you've been to Reno, but I know, Chris, you have. For everybody else, Reno is like a city that was abandoned in the 80s. It's just dirty casinos. I don't mean that as in like gambling is a dirty habit. Just, they're literally filthy. Like just sadness goes on there. There's nothing good in that town, it seems like. From my perspective, which is this little tiny corner of Reno where the show was held, was the Pepper Mill. And the Pepper Mill actually got renovated and was pretty nice inside. But the fact was, we were still kind of stuck in a casino. You still had to walk through this casino crowd, the cigarette smoke, the gamblers, like just sadness to get to anything in that place. And I did not like it. It was not a good experience. And Vegas is Vegas. Like, I don't want to ever go to, like, I have zero interest in going. It's just not a place for me. And both, so in Reno, Vegas, whatever, there's like where the Peppermill is in Vegas. It's kind or in Reno is kind of like in the middle of nowhere. Like there's nothing within walking distance. Like there's nothing. You got to get in Uber. Louisville, downtown Louisville, where the Kentucky whatever convention center was. I mean, it felt like I was in Indianapolis. There was just restaurants all over the place. It's in the Bourbon District, so there's restaurants everywhere. There's lots of places to go and experience. The Peppermill Casino, you basically are stuck there. Like, and it wasn't great. Plus, the ceilings were really low. There's something to be said for having really high. It just feels so open and free. The Peppermill felt like a dungeon. Did not like it. Um, he also said, with Asmodee having bought up so much of the industry, how does that change something like GAMA? Did it feel like it was mostly Asmodee? No. This is interesting. This is a really interesting question. When Asmodee first started buying up the industry, it definitely felt that way. When you went to Gen Con, there was the Asmodee Pavilion, which took up like a quarter of the Gen Con floor, and all of the Asmodee publishers were right there. People walking around in Asmodee gear. The Asmodee store, where you had to go in to buy any products from any of the various publishers, was there. That felt very weird. But since Asmodee's been bought and sold now like 30 times, I don't know, that's not true. That's hyperbole. It's been bought and sold a few times. My experience with Asmodee recently has felt like the individual publishers that fall under the Asmodee brand seem to have a decent amount of autonomy. And I felt like when I have meetings with those people, I feel like I'm talking to this publisher. For instance, I pitched a game to Lookout Games. I pitched Rival Rails to Lookout Games at Essen Spiel Essen this year. Lookout Games is an Asmodee brand. And so the difference being, when I went to pitch that game, Asmodee had its own business office. They had rented a part of the hall. They had catering there, all kinds of stuff. But when I sat down to meet with the developer of Lookout Games, I was meeting with the developer of Lookout Games, not some corporate entity, which felt really good. And so being at GAMA, it didn't feel like it's just Asmodee Central. In fact, I honestly think that one of the things that feels good about GAMA is that everybody has a voice. Asmodee hasn't bought the show. Like, they don't own the show. And everybody, even the smallest publisher there, has a voice. Can get on seminars, can get on stage, can get in front of retailers. And the Asmodee conglomerate was kind of separated into their own individual entities. And that I like that. I like that a lot. And then Jonathan said it's a good and bad that there's only 4 hours of booth time each day if you're able to schedule meetings during the other hours. But would those have to be off-site because the doors are closed? Yes, ish. In years past, I would have said yes. Like you would have had to have basically lunch meetings. You'd have to go somewhere for lunch to have a meeting if it wasn't during booth hours. But at the Kentucky Convention Center, the exhibit hall was kind of upstairs, its own thing. And then we had 2 other floors of that convention center full of meeting rooms, as well as like a dedicated eating area, like where the keynote speakers spoke, and they had big like lunchtime seminars. That area was always open and available. So I had a lot of meetings just there because you go in the door. They had a few food vendors there, and then we could just go. Find a table, sit down, and have a meeting. That was nice. Except that the problem with that sort of situation is you're in a public space where there's no real way to say, hey, we're in a private meeting, please stay out of this. So some of my meetings got interrupted because somebody at a table over here was listening to our conversation and said, I have some input, and came over and they weren't aware that we were in a scheduled let's talk business meeting. I don't balk at that. I wasn't like, oh, come on, dude, we let this person, it happened a couple of times. Let these people in and let these people have their voice. That happens a lot less when you're at your own kind of booth. You can have a little bit more of a private discussion. I don't mind it either way. When we go to Gen Con, in years past, we've tried to set up like a little hidey hole to have these special meetings. I don't think under my reign, I don't think we're going to do that this year. We'll have a very small booth. It's just going to be product. And if somebody wants to have a meeting with me, we will step out for a minute and have a meeting and then come back. Having that little, it just, we'll go somewhere else. That'll be, when I schedule meetings, we'll do that elsewhere. But to answer all your questions, I think they all kind of related to GAMA specifically. I think that, I'm meaning the organization. I think that there's been a lot of positive growth. I think there's been a lot of positive introspection, reflection on the organization's behalf, and I'm excited for the future of the organization and hope that there can be a little bit more cooperation amongst everybody. Because, what's the saying? Tides rise all ships, or sinking ships rise tide. I don't know what it is. I think it's good for all of us if we all cooperate and get along together. It makes everybody more profitable, or more sustainable is probably the real word I should search for. There you go. Other questions? You got anything else you want to talk about this week? I could review more books. I'm still reading. Any books you want me to read and talk about? We could do some buddy reads if there's something you want to read together. Let me know. In the comments, thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know sounds smart is ulterior. Is an adjective meaning intentionally concealed as motives. When one has extensively pondered about men as a career or as a vocation, one sometimes feels nostalgic for primates. At least they do not have ulterior motives. Albert Camus, an Algerian-born French author and philosopher. Ulterior, Ulterior. I've always wondered about that word. Look, the word roots of ulterior, because it just sounds wrong. It doesn't seem to fit in with any other words. Words are hard.